guys, it's NautoAce.
And this will be the MmGS E3 2019 special Roundup 3. So there are more things that I want to give my thoughts on during this E3, and a lot of good ones, and surprisingly, company listened. So let's get started. So the first thing is Super Mario Maker 2. They had a in-depth treehouse event for it. They're talking about the game, showing the demonstration, and the producer Tetsuka, he's in charge of Super Mario Maker. He did Super Mario Brothers Wii, Super Mario Brothers Wii U, that type of game. And of course, if you remember, there was a big complaint in the past that you cannot play with friends online, and there was so much outcry, criticism, and calling them out on it. Professionally, constructively, respectfully to some extent, there you go. And to a point that the producer said, we heard your cry, we heard your concern, we heard your criticism. In the VIA update, in a future update, they will put, you can able to play online with your friends, but it's not going to be at launch, it's going to be an update. Yeah, I mean, it should have been in the first place. I don't understand why they didn't do it, and they said what, because due to the fact of the leaderboard. It basically, the way I say it's like, there might be things for it a bit, but didn't realize that I guess we're missing some cards here, so to some extent, they weren't thinking with a full deck, as Jedi 1 would say long time ago. People will know who that guy is if you follow YouTube in 2008 and so. But anyway, yeah, so yes, in the VIA update, they're gonna have, you can able to play with friends and online. In my opinion about it, pretty cool. At least they listen, and this is why it's okay to call them out, to criticize them, to basically let them know, let your voice heard in a professional, constructive, considerate, respectable way. If you're gonna go there and basically just harass them, oh, you suck for X, Y, and Z, i.e. in the case with Waluigi in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate last year, some people did say it's kind of unfortunate that Waluigi's not a playable character, but there are some said, oh, Sakurai sucked because he didn't put in Waluigi. Even stupid, inappropriate meme to a point that Sakurai basically was irritated and had to take out of his time developing the game to basically block people on Twitter. To a point that he even did a post saying that we already got the character for the DLC, so keep your horse on. Even when they ask what you want in English, because they knew that the American audience are very, very like aggressive about it, to a point that he was getting irritated. I mean, there you go. But if you're being respectful, considerate, constructive, there's no problem with that one. That's okay. But if you're just going there, just pissing them off because you're pissed off, well, come on, man. It's his job. It's a company. They're making money. It's not a charity there. So the next one I want to give my thoughts on is Grandblue Fantasy Versus, the fighting game based on the popular MMORPG in Japan, Grandblue Fantasy. It's also going to come out on the PlayStation 4. Is it going to come out in worldwide? Who knows? But anyway, Grandblue Fantasy Versus is a fighting game developed by Arc System Works in a partnership with Cygames. That's they own the game. So in Japan, Arc System Works is gonna publish the game, but in America, or yeah, in the US, surprisingly, it's XSeed Games. So is it a good thing or bad thing? Well, here's the way I say it. First, it's a good thing. Hey, it's coming out outside of Japan. There you go. Hopefully XSeed English dub. Hopefully, please give an English dub option there. But anyway, different story there is that why XSeed? Why not Arc System Works? I thought they already started publishing a game. They did publish a game for Unist, and then they also did it with Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle. So what is going on? Why is it XSeed publishing Grandblue Fantasy Versus? Well, my theory could be is that even so that Arc System Works US is they do publish game, they probably still are limited to what games they can publish. So when push comes to shove, they probably still need someone else to publish certain games. I mean, the Kill la Kill game, IF, basically is going to be published by P-Cube. I think that's already been confirmed. But in Japan, Arc System Works is the one that's publishing it. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, great, it's cool, it's going to come out. But let's see how the localization production works. Hopefully English dub there. So related to that with XSeed Games is they also going to be releasing AKIBA'S TRIP, Hellbound, and Debriefed. Debriefed. Excuse me, man. So basically, what it is, and I didn't even know about this. So the one that came out a long time ago was that AKIBA Drip was the second one. AKIBA Beat is the third game, and apparently this is the original version. Apparently it came out on the PSP. No wonder why no one had heard about it. Yeah, if you look at the trailer, the graphics, like, yeah, that looks like a high-res PSP game. So interesting. So I guess at the time they didn't want to bring it up because the concept is you gotta take off someone's clothes because, and it is part of the story. It's not some crazy guy. Is that in that world in the game in AKIBA Trip, there are sort of vampires. There are vampires. That's a weird thing. There are vampires, and what do you need to do with vampires? Take off their clothes so they basically get disappear, disintegrate. There you go. So. Yeah, but the only concern about this is even though it's a PSP game, high-res to a PS4 game, is Sony censorship. Will they censor the game? I mean, there's not really much censorship and it's in-game, which just taking out the quotes, but still, Sony's crazy-ass censorship stupidity, excuse the language, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see that one, but hopefully there's not a lot of censorship, because I just don't like that. But it is interesting they're finally bringing that game out, high-res, remastered to the PS4. So the last thing I want to talk about here is the collection of mana and the trial of mana. So the first of all is the collection mana. Why did it take 2 years from the Japanese? So from what I heard, I read this a long time ago, is that Square Enix to some extent, because this came out in 2017 of summer in Japan, Square Enix to some extent outside of Japan or even in Japan, they were still iffy with the Switch because it barely came out. So the reason why they say, okay, let's do some collection port, let's bring it out to the Switch. And to some extent also because of the third game, you need to localize it because to some extent is that the third game never came out outside of Japan ever in 1994. It's been, like I said before, a long time ago, never came out. I'll tell the story from what I know why this happened. So finally they came out, so probably they needed time to localize, especially the third game. I mean, they have done this before for Square Enix. I mean, Final Fantasy V came out for the Super Famicom, never came out outside of that. They decided to go with 6, and then later on with the PlayStation, from what I heard, the rumor was Sony actually helped them fund the game to localize Final Fantasy V. That's why the very first one was in the PlayStation. Then later on ported to the GBA, to the mobile games, and yeah. And of course now you recognize him now in Final Fantasy Dissidia, so there you go. And so probably the same deal with this one. I know a lot of people wanted this game to come out like Lord knows how many years, but again, so finally came out. So why did the collection basically 2 years later? My theory about it is they needed more time to localize it. Square Enix really want to make sure that will it really sell? Will people really want this? But of course people were, guess what? They were basically vocal about it, said, hey, please, can you bring this out? We want this out. So finally Square Enix said, fine, let's do it. And at the same time, I guess the timing also with Trial of Mana, which is the third Secret of Mana game, or Senkekken Densetsu 3, let's just call it that. And there you go. So of course, I told before in the Nintendo conference or Nintendo Direct, they are going to bring a remastered remake version, but a really big haul remake version. This is the interesting part, is that it's really a big overhaul from its Super Nintendo Super Famicom counterpart. Because after Secret of Mana Remake 2 came out, I'm like, it'd be funny if they do a third one remake, and I guess it is true. They are doing a third one remake there. So pretty awesome, and it's way different than the Super Famicom version, but at the same time, the architect, the concept behind it, the game mechanics, to some extent, is close. Because with Secret of Mana, the remake was basically just a 3D version of a Super Nintendo. A little bit of changes like 8 ways, a lot of minor bugs, unfortunately. I mean, a lot of people, the reason why they didn't like it, the voices were like meh meh meh, and the controls were a little bit different, not bad. And of course, the game is a lot of bugs, like literally a lot of bugs. it randomly crashes your game. And the story with Secret of Mana was the reason why they did that one. It was an experiment. It was actually an experiment to see how the audience is gonna react to it. Because they did Adventure Mana, that was a mobile game that was ported to the Vita with controls. But people didn't know that an Adventure Mana remake is a Final Fantasy Adventure based on that. We made it to a mobile game in 3D, and then they ported it to the Vita. And like I said, the game, Adventure Mana, it plays like Final Fantasy Adventure. A little bit of clunkiness. It has that still game mechanics game rule, but it is 8-way. Yeah, and the same goes with Secret of Mana. They probably use the same architect stuff from Adventure Mana to make it to Secret of Mana. I did talk about this before. And I mean, it wasn't that bad. Like I said, the bugs, the voice, English voice, and the controls, some of them, like they got rid of the Mode 7 cannon effect. They got rid of that one, which people weren't happy about it. And then of course they weren't happy that you can't even strafe. Believe it or not, you can't strafe in the game like the Super Nintendo version. So in this one, I read an article about it for Trial of Mana, and apparently the reason why this one they're putting more budget, they're making it a big overhaul, is that they knew the situation because the game never came out of Japan. So for some that knew who this game was all about, finally you get to play it not only in the classic version in the collection Mana, but a new version for the new audience that never heard of this series. Once again, to try out in a new way, which is I'm gonna buy both of them. I just hope Collection Mana also goes to the PlayStation. I know, but we'll wait and see. Maybe there'll be some weird skew they're gonna do with the PS4 version, like the Collection Mana, but then they added more like the Legend of Mana for the PlayStation, and then the GBA games, the DS game, and they ended with the Legend of Mana, or what Mana? The PlayStation 2 Mana game. Lord knows I don't know what the title is. Is it? No, Legend of Mana is the one for the PlayStation, which you can buy it as a download. And they made it to like a weird Final Fight type game, but whatever. But yeah, that I forgot what it's called, Legacy, whatever. But yeah, there was like a PS2 Mana game, and it wasn't really that good because it was really an actual open world Mana. That's what that Trial of Mana was based on. That's the reason. So that's why they made an overhaul. $60. PS4, Steam, Switch, because here's a chance for, like I said, for people to have a chance finally to play it in English, while the new one's like, that's an interesting Square Enix game, Trial of Mana there. So, of course, then the question for this is going to be a back history, a little bit of history about Secret of Mana 2 or the Trial of Mana of what happened, why this game was never ever released outside. Believe it or not, there was at one point in 1994 they were gonna consider bringing it out. Believe it or not, they were gonna consider bringing it out, translated, but something, let's just say, this might be a rumor, so I don't know. I can't confirm it's true, but Wikipedia probably will tell you there were some problems. So before they became Square Enix, they were just Squaresoft. That's like 1994, and they had this one important person for Squaresoft USA. This guy was the mastermind of localization most of the SNES games for, to localize it from Japan to the US. And his name is Ted Woosley. He's a legendary, really good when it comes to localizing game. However, the problem with Squaresoft at that time, he only has a small group when they're doing localization of this game. And the pop quiz I'm going to ask is, what happens when you have a lot of games you need to localize to bring it outside of Japan in a limited time? Do you go crunch? Do you have to spend more time? Do you need to focus in? Yeah, so of course if you're hearing about this, again, rumors, the crunch. That's lately been one of the trends that's happening is crunch. NetherRealm, Rockstar, and some other company, and yes, it is true, unfortunately. So back to 1994 with Ted Woolsey, there were a lot of games that Squaresoft wanted him to localize, and they wanted to release it in certain time, like every 4 or 5 months. Again, that's just what I'm guessing, but this is what I heard, is that they wanted to localize a lot of games, because Squaresoft, and to a point that when it comes to Secret of Mana 3 or the Trial of Mana, there was a rumor, a really rumor. So please don't quote me in this one, but I just read it's a rumor. Ted Woolsey had a nervous breakdown. There was an anxiety attack. I don't know. Something bad happened to Ted Woolsey to a point that he was falling apart. He was falling apart because he was just localizing this, localizing that. It was just too much. So Squaresoft said, okay, we're gonna have to cut back his duty to a point that they had to basically cancel some game not to be released outside of Japan. And again, this is in 1994 or in the mid 90s. So one of them was Secret of Mana. Instead, Squaresoft USA decided to make a different Secret of Mana game called Secret of Evermore, which is an American-made Secret of Mana game by a different team. Ted Woolsey has nothing to do with that because it's an American game. It'll be fun if they remake that, but it's not really a fun game. Secret of Evermore wasn't that good. I rented it, couldn't get into it. But anyway, they had to cut back some of the games that you need to localize because I think after Secret of Mana, I know he did Final Fantasy 3 or 6, and then after that was Chrono Trigger because that's the reason. Chrono Trigger, and then some other. That's why Romantic Saga series barely had any localization for the Super Nintendo version. Front Mission. There's a lot of Super Nintendo, Super Famicom game. He couldn't localize it because it was just too much for him. He couldn't do it. So they cut back, and one of the games that got scrapped, like I said, was Trial of Mana. So forward to 2019, they had the technology now. They got a lot of people. They bought Enix, they bought IDOS, they bought Tytos. Yes, Tytos, the people who did Space Invader, basically said, yeah, so now I think it's really time. So why didn't they do this before? Well, maybe marketing timing. There you go. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, finally you decided to do Trial of Mana because again, with the production with Secret of Mana, I mean, like I said, it was mixed in review, but the bottom line is from there they said we can do better. Trial of Mana. There you go. So yeah, so that's probably the reason I heard that game was never came out. Rumor has it was that Ted Woolsey basically was just he had a problem. He was falling apart because he was just localizing too many games to a point that there was a rumor that quote unquote there was crunch time there. So there you go. So those are roundup number 3. With that, let's see what more interesting happened at E3 2019.
With that, I'll see you guys later.